So thank you so much, Siddharth and Smita, Kunj, and Nandeep, the whole Pune Tech community team. I mean, they are doing really a brilliant job in uh, accumulating all the like-minded peoples together at one platform, either in the form of in-person events or online. They are doing really great job. So I would highly recommend every one of you to kindly just join in these sessions because all the speakers spend a lot of time in curating the content for you all, and also do subscribe the YouTube channel. It is really good. You'll find almost everything related to Microsoft either in Microsoft 365, Power Platform, or Azure. So without further ado, what I'll do is I'll quickly elaborate what I'm going to talk about today. So today's session is integrating Azure OpenAI DALL-E model, and this is with respect to you can integrate this with Power Platform and how, which is using custom connector. So I will not talk about it much right now. Just I'll give a small introduction about me. So my name is Shrushti Shah, and I have been working as a technical consultant. Also, I'm a Microsoft MVP, and I have almost around more than 6+ years of experience and working majorly in Microsoft 365, SharePoint Online Teams, and Power Platform. Also, some areas in Azure like Azure Infrastructure as a Code, where you either automate or provision your Azure resources either using PowerShell, Terraform, or using ARM templates, and some part of DevOps. So that is just about me. I also have a website where I uh, frequently update blogs. So if you are interested, please go ahead and check. Yes. So today's agenda, it is like really, I don't have any slides. Everything will be deep dive, hands-on, so you understand where what Azure OpenAI is, where you can find it, how you can provision the resource, and how you can get the endpoint and use it, create custom connector, etc. So this is what the agenda is. Firstly, we'll go to the Azure portal and we'll see what Azure OpenAI is and how you can provision Azure OpenAI resource. When I talk about Azure OpenAI, it is nothing different. It is just similar to your any Azure resource which is hosted in Azure. Maybe you can call it storage account. Definitely, that is also a resource which is a part of a resource group in Azure. So this is similar to that. And if someone already has created Azure machine learning models in ML Studios, so it is nothing different at all. So it is just it provides few more capabilities which we look at, and how you can go and create that resources, what exactly you need to create Azure OpenAI resource. Can you do it right away or no? Let's check it out. And definitely we'll use that endpoint and create a custom connector. Why custom connector? I'll come to that later. And then we'll test the custom connector. We'll use that custom connector in one of our application and also in workflow, which is a Power Automate flow, so that you can understand how you can use it if there is a similar requirement. So yes, as I mentioned, no further slides. I will go to my, yeah, Azure portal. So as you can see, this is the Azure portal, and what ideally we do is portal.azure.com. For someone who maybe has not visited Azure portal anytime, we just go to portal.azure.com, and already you can see Azure OpenAI service, or maybe you can just search by Azure OpenAI, and you will land to this. You can search it. Now what it does is you can create your Azure OpenAI resources. So as you can see, I already have two resources, but right now, if you want, you can also go ahead and create. So let's just see what exactly is needed to create Azure OpenAI resource. I'm creating a new one. The subscription, definitely you should have an active subscription. If not, also you can have a free trial subscription, but it is only for a limited period. And if you are a student, then probably you can utilize student credits from Microsoft as well. Resource group. So probably you should have your own resource group. Just create a resource group. If you don't have any, just click on create new and it will be created for you. Region. So as you can see, there is only a set of regions which wherein you can go ahead and create Azure OpenAI. As of now, what I'm doing is I'm creating in US region. And why US region? Because the capabilities like chat completion or text, which wherein you converse with your Azure OpenAI model, just which is completions, chat completion, and Dall-E. These are the three things which are as of now available. Name, you can give the name for your Azure OpenAI resource. Pricing tier, I only can select standard SO right now. So just go ahead and hit networking, maybe some policies, and hit create, it will create for you. What I'll do is I'll go to my already created custom this Azure OpenAI service. So as you can see, this Azure OpenAI service has a few things. You can firstly you have to make sure that it is not blocked by any network. So let me just go to the networking. So as of now, I've allowed access from all networks because where I'm going to consume this is in a different environment and it is not in the same tenant. Okay, hence I'm keeping it I'm allowing it to all networks. But if not, then maybe this is not a definitely not a good practice. If you are creating an application for your organization where you're supposed to use Azure OpenAI, make sure that you always have your VNet, subnet, and firewall networking rules enabled. Don't just allow access from all networks. It can be easily hampered, so it is not recommended at all. This is just for demo purpose, so I'm keeping it all networks on. I'm going to discard my change, yeah. And what we can do is, okay, let's go back. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll explore. I'll go to the. This is similar to Azure Machine Learning Studio, and it will open in Azure OpenAI Studio for me. Okay. So now you can see the provisioning of Azure OpenAI resource is nothing new. It is similar to how you provision a storage account, but all you have to keep in mind is you need to create it in a specific region, which is US, so that you can leverage this few functionalities or capabilities like chat, completions, or DALL-E. Okay. And next is this: you have to navigate to the studio, OpenAI Studio, and here maybe what we can do is there are a few deployments. So right now I will only go through the playground. So let's just explore. There are three options available: chat, completions, and DALL-E. Okay. So if I go to playground, okay, unless and until I create a new deployment, I won't be able to play with the chat. Let's see for completions, is it the same or no? Okay. And for DALL-E, yes. So as you can see the difference, there is a three things which are available. One is chat, by which you can ask any question or you just write in a prompt and it will just give back some response. Completions is basically if you want to summarize a text or a group of, let's say there are 5 to 6 page of a paragraph of information and you want that to be summarized or describe or get the key values or key important aspects from that paragraph, or those things you can do with completions. So that is when completions is used and chat is used. DALL-E, what is DALL-E? It is a model which is created and everything what you're seeing is backed by OpenAI. So this is nothing new. If you are aware about OpenAI, what OpenAI provides, that is chat completion or DALL-E, this is same. We are using the same model. That is nothing new. What we are doing is we are just securing it in Azure, and this can run on your own enterprise data. So right now, DALL-E, what it does is if you give some prompt, let's say that, hey, I want an image of New York with some different theme, let's say Avenger theme, then it should provide you that image. Definitely, that is a custom image. You will either you can go to Adobe or maybe you create it on your own. But if you Google it, you will not find it. So what we can do is let's just try New York skyline with Avengers theme. Let's see what it does. And then I'll come to prompts. So as soon as I hit generate, this is the playground where you can just play with the model, which are these are the three models: chat, completions, or DALL-E. The only difference is to play with DALL-E model, you don't need any deployments. But if you really want to go ahead and test how chat can be used or completions can be used, you have to create a deployment. I'll come to that once I'm done with this. So as you can see, this image was created for me, and this skyline is the New York skyline, and this is kind of an artistic image. It is not the as is image which we find it in Google, like New York skyline or surrounded by a waterfront. No, right? This is a new with the theme of Avengers, and you can see that different theming. And if you really want, you can regenerate as well. So there are few options. Let's explore. One is copy prompt. So let's say maybe your this prompt was really unique and it helped you solve a problem, right? Uh, right now, this is kind of an image generation, but definitely your prompt can be unique. You are generating an artistic images, or your work is related to marketing or editing or imaging something kind of, maybe your prompt is quite useful, so you can copy it and maybe you can have you can keep it in a repository where we keep all unique prompts, right? So you can use that prompt or maybe you reuse more. Next is regenerate. So let's say this right now the image which was generated, it doesn't is not that much up to the mark which I am looking for. So what I'll do is I'll regenerate an image and it will regenerate an image for you. If the image fits to your requirement and it has given the correct result and output, and then it is ready to use, right? You want to use it right away in your different things. So maybe you can download it. Also, code, I'll come to this later, and delete. So instead of just keeping all the data here, maybe it is good that if this doesn't fit your requirement and it is no longer needed, just delete it and keep only whatever is required or necessary. Now, next thing is show code. Exactly what we're going to do is I'm going to replicate the same thing. So in this screen, what we are doing is I'm writing a prompt, clicking on generate, and I'm getting the images, right? How can I do the same thing in my Power Apps or Power Automate? This is what I'm going at. So definitely I'll have to integrate my Power Platform with something, and that something is the endpoint or API, which will help me to generate images, right? And that API will be of Azure OpenAI, definitely. That API endpoint, and where you can see those details is in the show code. So in the show code, you see this is my endpoint. This is so nice. You just have to create a resource, nothing else. You get everything at your hand, like endpoint, key. Also, there are two different kinds of payload which you get. One is in Python and the JSON. So now what you are seeing here is exactly what we need. What we did is I added a prompt and I can just write in, just give me one image of so and so size with specification, or maybe you can add more detailing, as much as detailing or context whatever you need into your prompts with the intention of what you want to do or what you want to generate. Right now, this was a very vague example, like just generate a New York skyline with Avenger themes. But you can add more context, like which Avenger, particularly which Avenger theme you are referring to. There are so many different kinds of themes in Avenger, right? So just give more context, what different, if you want some specific shade of image or some specific size, add everything into this, and then maybe it will give the response of exactly of what you need. Next is the number of image and size. So right now what you're seeing is the endpoint. This is the endpoint, and these are the parameters which are needed so that the endpoint gives me some output, correct? And to authenticate that endpoint, right? So let's say I am logged into my Azure. How Azure will know that okay, this person is authorized to log in and it has the permission by your credentials or OAuth authentication, right? Similarly, for your endpoints, you have to authenticate that so that your Power Platform knows, okay, the endpoint which you're using is authenticated and you are authorized to use it. Hence, there is a key which you can use it. So now what we need is whenever you go back or if you need this, whenever you create a custom connector, just copy these details like this endpoint, the key, and the body. This is exactly what we are going to do and use it to create custom connector. I hope the Azure OpenAI, how you can create it is almost clear. But let's just go ahead and look at the deployment. So what exactly deployment is, I'll come to it. So let's see what deployment offers. So when I click on the model, deployment is kind of you have to choose a model. So right now, chat and completions I couldn't use because it needs GPT model to be created. Only then I can use it. Only for that deployment it will be used. So now let me just see if I can create something. So this is GPT-4 I am creating. You can also choose GPT-335 Turbo, but I have exhausted my quota, so I can't. Model version. Now let's say you want to create a app or a bot where all you have to do is just integrate this endpoint and the endpoint will start responding it. You don't have to do anything. This is a ready to use or a low code, no code kind of a solution. You can use it in Power Virtual Agent as well. But yeah, that is kind of a separate topic. But yes, if you want to use or create a chatbot kind of thing, then just go ahead and select 0613 as the model version and just give a deployment name. Okay. Okay. And advanced options, you can see how many tokens per minute you want. to utilize and enable dynamic quota. And these are the options with respect to your billing and things. So let's just go ahead and create. So if you see, I got an error. And what this error says is the current subscription does not have the feature required by format OpenAI, GPT-4, and version this is standard. So the options which I chose doesn't fit well. What we have to do is we have to select a model, okay, for, and I have to choose this. If I choose the model version as this and PTC demo, let's see if it gets created. See? Okay. Maybe there's something wrong, I think. But yeah, ideally, what ideally we do is if you want to integrate it with the Power Virtual Agent or if you want to create a chatbot kind of thing, then it is recommended to choose the this GPT-35 Turbo. And if you select something else, 16K, and you can just keep auto update to default as well. Let's see if it creates or not. Not sure why it is breaking. It is just working fine. Okay, let's create. Yeah. So sometimes the model version, you have to take care of which model you are using it and what is the model version. So all the details you'll find it here. And maybe you can go ahead and just edit the deployment as well. And you will see all the details again, whatever you choose. And to Yes, let me just go to this. And yeah, here as well, you will see what is the model name, what was the model version which was selected, the update, the deployment type, because this is where your billing will be in code. Standard content filter is right now default. I haven't added any filters and tokens per limit, rate limit, and rate for tokens or and so also for requests. So all the properties of the model you can find it here. So let's go ahead and chat with it. Now I should have a chat playground. Yes. So this is something very interesting where you can just directly use, as you can see now for the provisioned Azure OpenAI resource, I also have my deployment along with it. Now let me just type in what is Pune Tech Community. Let's see uh, what happened. Hmm. Okay, it is asking us to wait. So we'll wait for 5 minutes because we just have created a deployment. But after that, maybe we can just come and try. And similarly, completions, you can just load an example, summarize key points. And if you click on generate, maybe this will also fail because it is just created and it will summarize the document for you. And here you can also see that same view code. So it is not just like you can view code for Dall-E. Similarly, you can view code for completions in chat as well, where you'll find all the information. And this information is what all you need in your body, as in a endpoint body to be passed, so that you can use that endpoint and you can generate a text or summarize a text or generate an image. So exactly, this is for completions, and this is your endpoint key and the body which you have to pass a prompt with temperature, top parameters, frequency penalty, maximum tokens it should have, etc. Similarly, chat, you will have view code.
One question. So, in case of, let's say, either the chat playground or even in case of DALL-E, right, which we use the sample code or maybe copy code, right? So it has few parameters like temperature, max tokens. So if we exactly
Yes,
copy, so
right.
consider the
Yeah.
first image that we got in DALL-E, right, for the Avenger theme that you mentioned. If we
Mhm.
exactly copy the parameters for this image, let's say Annie or other image, and then we actually paste it on, let's say, either a separate Jupyter notebook or directly using Python, or maybe we are directly pasting it on Power Platform as you mentioned. Does it guarantee to give us the exact same result, or it can generate a new one? It might not be the exact same because I
It
feel like
it
there is no,
it
yeah.
generates exact same results. It
Mhm.
does, but you need few trials.
Ah,
Either it will
okay.
generate it in the first attempt. If not, then maybe in the second or
Or
third
like,
third attempt it does.
because there is
Yeah.
no, yeah, you usually we have like in case of random, right? So we have seed, right? Eventually it gives you this
If
exact
I
seed, so it will
delete this
generate the same
again,
result.
if we
Yeah,
can just delete this again, now there is no
correct, correct.
this footfall, right? That we just
Mm-hmm.
generated an image. If we generate again, then see it in action.
Ah, okay. So is there a way to like exactly get this image, like copying the code or eventually, or we don't have that control?
No, no, no. You have to download it because this is, see, it generates
Ah,
a new
yeah,
one,
yeah.
right?
There is
If
this
I
control.
regenerate. It
Hmm.
generates the exact same image if only your prompt is exactly same, but in few attempts. It doesn't
Okay.
guarantee
Okay.
you in the first attempt. Yeah,
Yeah, it's random that way. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Same for the chat out, like the output of chat or completions as well, right?
No. This works bit differently. Chat, maybe you will find some similar results because
Mm-hmm.
the question is same. If I go and explore, I need 5 minutes because this is
Right.
still deployed and this is just live.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
maybe if yeah, I'm not sure it will work. Yeah. So if I just type in what Pune Tech Community is, and
Hmm.
this is really intelligent, it got the same like answer about Pune Tech Community, and it is giving the same answer. The reason behind this image is kind of a generation. I mean, it tries to modify something, and then it generates. Maybe after 2 to 3 attempts, it says that okay, if it is the same prompt, then if it has
Mm-hmm.
some similar things in the some content cache or blob. Maybe I'm not sure right now it stores in the blob, but yeah, it will pick up from there. But chat, because it is the same question which you're asking again and again, then there are possibilities that it will give you the same response. I think I have seen for chat it works fine. Even for the chat completion, it summarizes in the same way. If I click on
Okay.
generate, yeah, still it is working. But yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
unless and
yeah,
until we tweak the parameters, it should be same in case that way.
unless and
Okay.
until you add some more words to it, it won't,
Mm-hmm.
or you regenerate,
Or
because
change the
regenerate
parameter.
means that you want the first result was not up to your satisfaction and you are regenerating it to modify further. I mean, you want a more clear
Correct.
response from, yeah, yeah. So what we are going to do is, as we now observed how you can use the endpoints and this thing, we are going to consume it because now you are aware where you can find the endpoint either for chat or completion or Dall-E. Let's just go and check this thing. Okay, I'm in the correct environment. Yeah. Okay, fine. So what we are going to do is, this is my Power Platform and make.powerapps.com. I will just delete everything. And if you just go to make.powerapps.com, if someone is not familiar with Power Apps, all you have to do is just hit make.powerapps.com and go to custom connectors. And now I'll take some time to elaborate about custom connectors. Maybe not everyone in the room might be aware about what custom connectors are and how do we use connectors in Power Platform. So just to give a minute or two background about custom connector. So basically, what happens is whenever I go to my Power Platform or either Power Apps or Flow, then we have some connectors. If we go and see the connections, just a second, discover all. If Yeah. So here maybe whenever you try to integrate, so let's say I want to send an email, and this is not an Outlook email, but a Gmail, right? Gmail account. And whenever some things happen, let's say maybe um, there was there was a new YouTube video which got posted and it is really good. I want to share it with my community group over in Gmail, and you want to create this automation. So first thing what you will need is definitely an integration of YouTube with Gmail. So to integrate that, YouTube is a separate platform, Gmail is a separate platform, but definitely they both are part of Google Workspace or Google, right? Similarly, in Microsoft, when I want to just, if there is a SharePoint or let's say an Outlook email or task or planner, whenever I want to integrate or talk to these services, either to notify something or to update any of the CRUD operation, like if I want to add some data or read some data, get, update, post, delete, etc. If you want to interact any in any way with any of the services, all you need is a connection with them, right? Just like, let me just go to the flows to elaborate more. If I just create a new instant cloud flow. Okay. Whatever you see here in all section, these are all the connectors. There, and the connectors are not limited. There are around more than 350 connectors which you can use. Built-in connectors, standard connectors. So built-in means it is only for your Power Platform. Standards are the one part which are part of Microsoft, and there are some third party as well. Just like you see OneDrive, SharePoint, Planner, Gmail, Teams, more. Like I mean, I think there are many more connectors which are apart from Microsoft. Also, there are premium connectors like SQL Server or Azure Storage Account Data Lake, etc. More from Azure and your custom connectors. So now, when does this custom connector comes into the picture? Let's say there is a data source or your third-party application which stores the data related to pet, probably a dog, cat, or different hybrid types of or the types of dogs which are there probably in India, and it maintains the data for all the pets and its different kinds and where these pets can be found, who all are the owners of the pet, etc. I mean, just a random example. Maybe you have third-party application which is holding this information, and now you want to create an app which can help you digitalize that solution. For example, let's say this app will help you see where you can find these stray dogs which are abandoned or which needs a home, right? Exactly. And for that reason, you want to create it a power app or a flow. You can find n number of examples, something like this. So how you can do that? The only way to do is using custom connector. And why custom connector? And to use custom connector, you also need some APIs. For example, a third-party app should also have the API so that it can get the pet information. You can get the pet information either for a dog, cat, or maybe locality around region, etc. So you need endpoints so that you can communicate from Power App to your third-party app. So whenever the data is stored in the third-party app, you can get that information into your Power App and showcase it, right? The only way to communicate is via an endpoint. And how you can do that? By creating a custom connector. So custom connector is nothing new. If you have an endpoint, which is an API endpoint, and it has authentication either in the form of OAuth or basic authentication, you can go ahead and use it. So let this, I hope now the uh, example is clear of why we are going to use custom connector, because right now, if I just search for OpenAI, okay, to be more precise, Azure OpenAI, do you see anything here? I don't think there is any connector which is available with Azure OpenAI. Everything is Azure, but no OpenAI solution, right? There is no connector as of now available. So what we did is we created a custom connector, and the options which you are seeing are of custom connector. Similarly, you will see it here in the custom section. But right now, this is the trigger, hence you are not seeing. We have created some actions which are get and post actions. So let's just go ahead into the custom connector. And let me just, okay. So now this is the custom connector. It has 5 simple steps to follow. These are the 5 steps. What we do is okay, coming back. If you want to create a custom connector from scratch, this is where you can create a custom connector either from blank or from Azure or OpenAI, either a file or URL or Postman or GitHub, any of these things. So what we ideally do is we create it from blank, because if you don't have any other resource, then, or if you have OpenAI details, please go ahead and import a file or URL and it will create a custom connector for you. You just have to make minor few changes. But I created it from blank, and what I did is, this is the logo of how your custom connector will look like whenever someone will search. So this is how you can identify. Just like if I want to integrate it with email, so we ideally have this kind of a logo, right? So you can identify, okay, this is Outlook email, this is a Gmail icon. Hence, you can add your icons related to your company, organization, branded with this. Just upload it with the background color, provide a description, and the other thing is schema. So the scheme will always be HTTPS, because if I go back to my this thing and I will view code, I'll keep this open. This is the HTTPS endpoint, right? So you have to make sure which scheme you are using, HTTP or HTTPS. We are using HTTPS, and the host. The host is basically just this thing. This is your host, and whatever follows is your intention of what the API is. This is just the host, which is custom dall.openai.azure.com, and I'm going to just add it with the base URL. Next, security here. Okay, what we did here is we just added some basic information for a custom connector, which is description, logo, what will be the host, etc. The other step is how will your custom connector be authenticated, or what are the types of authentication. So there are a few types of authentication. I'll come back. I'll duplicate this. Let's just create a new custom connector. from blank. Okay. I'll keep it whatever is it right now. I'm not going to add any color or images. Description, integration with Power Platform. Okay. And let's just copy our and add it. If I go to the security, these are the type of authentication. No authentication, basic authentication. As of now, the API which we are going to use can't be like you can't use no authentication because it needs to be authenticated. The endpoint needs key. Okay. So what we are using is API key because by right now you would be aware what we are using is key, not a username or password, nothing like that. Basic authentication is username password. Okay. Key is if you have a key for an endpoint, even if you have already explored OpenAI, which is altogether a different, just OpenAI, not Azure OpenAI. You have keys which you can generate. So similar fashion, you can also integrate OpenAI as well with Power Platform using the same way. All you need is endpoint and key. Now, if I just click on key, and this key will be added to my header section of API. So let me just open a notepad. Okay. So how does your API works, right? It needs an endpoint. This is the API endpoint, and we add header sections. So in header we have key, and how do you want your response from your endpoint to be? Hence we add content type, which is of like JSON, right? It is a JSON object which we get back in the response. So these are the headers, and what is your type of your API? Either it is a get, post, patch, update, delete, either of from these three. If it is post call, which means you want to get some response back from your, I mean, on performing, let's say I added a prompt, right? And I generated an image. So what I did is I gave some prompt as an input. Taking that input, it will generate an image. And taking this all these things like number of image, size, prompt, it will generate something for me. So this is a post call. I want the API to generate something for me or to perform some operation like add the data there or in any database, something like that. Okay, or create a new line of data. So that if your API is of type post, then you need to pass body in your endpoints, right? If it is post, then definitely you have to pass the API that okay, what do you want me to generate and where you want to add this data to. Even if I want to add some data to the database, if that is a post call, you have to pass the data in the body so that it will add it to your database. So this is the post call. If it is get, all you need is API and headers, and that's it. It will, for get call, it will get the response back because we need some information from that database. We are not posting something there. So this is the difference between get and post. Now going back to our use case, right now, first step is we want to generate an image, and this has to be generated by Dall-E model, and OpenAI will do it for me. So this will be a post call. Hence, I will add headers, API key, okay, and the parameter name will be API key, and the location will be in the header. So as you can see, there are two types because at times we also pass query parameters to get the correct result and not generate large amount of results. So where you want exactly this to be a part of in header, right? So if we go ahead, let's go back to the definition. Now we sorted out like this is my custom, this is my endpoint, and this is how it is going to be authenticated. What next? What you want to create and what actions? So either you can create an action or triggers. Trigger is basically if you create a trigger, so whenever you use this trigger, something will happen and this will be triggered. Something like maybe if I receive an email with so and so subject, then just send it to a specific user, right? So that is what a trigger is. It is an automated function. Actions are basically you want to carry out some functionality and you want to get the response back. So what we are going to do is we are going to create an action, and this action will be, let's go ahead and look into it. It will take more time to create. So these are the two actions, Dall-E generate image and like why there are two actions. First of all, we only have one endpoint, and why two actions for this? To answer this question, I'll go back. There are two things. What happens is we directly can't use if we are using Azure OpenAI DALL-E endpoint, we directly can't generate image. What endpoint is doing is it gives me a JSON where I get the content ID that, hey, this is your image, and if you use this content ID, you will get the image. So I get an image generation ID. Using that, I can request for an image. So there are two steps. It is not single step, okay? And that you will not see anywhere here, and even in the Azure, you will not find that code. It just gives you one single endpoint with the key and also with the body. Ideally, if you try to just use this and create an custom connector, you will not get the response back. You will only get a JSON which is with the content ID and the status of your endpoint, which is running, succeeded, or not running. Okay, so let's go back, and what we can do is, this is one action which will help me to generate that ID. Using that ID, I can generate an image for that same prompt. It is for the same prompt I'm talking about, not different prompts. So what we do is, this is just the summary, name, summary, and the operation ID. This is just the unique name which you will use when you use it in a Power App or Power Automate. Now, this is where we are going to use that endpoint. So you can see the endpoint. What it is saying is images. Okay, this is the custom domain, OpenAI slash images slash generate submit. Okay, this you're going to use, and you have to add API version, because if you go to the code, and if I go to the Python, even here you will see the API version that has to be added as a query in your endpoint. So you have to add that. Even you can find that here, that same value. So you do that. What we do is, we import from sample. We click on post. We add that endpoint with headers. Only one header, content type, because key we already added, and JSON. And in the JSON, we pass this thing, JSON. This JSON, we pass it. And if we pass this JSON, that doesn't mean that we are bound to use this prompt. No, this is just it will just create a schema for me, nothing else. So let's go back, and you see the API version, you edit it, you update the value, and definitely this API version is required, but this will be used internally. You don't want your users to add this to your endpoint, right? Add this to your code when they use it. So this is API version. Content type, this is application slash JSON, and this is also internal, because you don't want your users to enter this value from front end. You come back, and this is the body which we added. And in the body, definitely the body is required because it is a post call. And there are three parameters. One is number of images, prompt, and size. If I click on number of images, just add a default value so that your user don't have to add it. But definitely you give them the option to choose what type of images they can generate. I mean, what number of images. Just give them the value, and it will be of a specific data type, and this will be internally used. Similarly, prompt, this has to be added by user. So I'm not adding any default value. It is required definitely, but it is important as well because users will be adding it, and the type will be string. Size of image, there can be different types of size. I just added a random 256, 512, and 1024 as a static values for them to choose, and default value I've given this. And this will also be an internal one. Now we are done. We have created the endpoint. We have, like, this action. For this action, we are almost done. What we do is, there is a code section. I am not going to modify any code details, but if you really want, you can add your custom code in C sharp, and you can add it. But I'm not going to waste time during writing code. What we can do is, we can just test this. Okay. And if I want to test, this is just going to generate some data for me, but that is definitely not going to be an image, right? This is first action, which is the post action. So what I'll do is, I'll add something new. Okay, waterfront, New York. Okay, I'm adding. I want an image of waterfront, and which has the backdrop of New York skyline. Okay, with New York skyline as a backdrop. Okay, now test operation. Just generated something. And the another thing is, you would be worried, where is my authentication? Where did I added the key? So here is, because I already had added the connection. All you have to do is you have to create a new connection and just add that key, paste it here, and then you will have that connection inbuilt. And once it is done, just click on test and you get the information. And now this information is nowhere related to that image. I don't have the URL, nothing. What am I going to do is I'm going to take this ID, and this is my next action. Let's go back to the definition. When you add multiple actions, you don't have to create or add any more thing. I mean, this action is combined, is part of the same connector. Just like, let's say, in email, you can send an email. You can also do multiple things, like you can send an email with attachments or receive email or notifications or n number of things, create tasks in email, meetings, etc. Everything definitely will be part of one service, right? That is Outlook. Similarly, this custom connector which we are creating is OpenAI DALL-E, and you can add multiple actions as much as you want to add. But yeah, just make it create it in the form of that the intention serves the best. If I am adding DALL-E and adding chat and completions, etc., then your users will be confused. What should I use and what should I search for? So just add your actions accordingly. Now, next action is generate image. Now, the generate image is very simple, relevantly. What you have to do is you just have to add the endpoint, and the endpoint is really different this time. So let's go back. And this is the endpoint which we use, and it generated an ID and some status, right? I did not generate an image. This endpoint is OpenAI, but the operations was not part of this previously. Images and operation ID. Now, what am I telling is, I want an image, but get me the image for my prompt. And how will I get that? By the ID which it generated in the previous action. So hence, I'm passing the operation ID as part of query. So as you can see, the operation ID, and the user has to add it. Hence, it is important. And the next thing is API version. Similarly, another query, it will be added in the endpoint query, content type JSON. And the type is get. Hence, you don't have to add anything in the body, etc. We are good to test. Let's go. And I will add the operation ID and let's see. Wow. It did generate an image, right? And let's just copy the URL and see if it really did generate something for us. Wow, this is great. A New York skyline in the backdrop with the waterfront in water line in the front, right? So this is what we exactly requested for, but it is not serving my intention like up to the mark. But yeah, this is the image which we got. And why it only gave me one image? Because by default I've added one as part of the body parameter number of images. I only want one and in one particular size, and it generate. Hence, it only gave back one response, one image as a response. Now, uh, this is working fine. I have two actions. I've created the custom connector. Make sure that whenever you create an actions, just save the connector. Only when you save it, then only you'll be able to test it. And if you're making any modifications, like I updated something in my action as part of query, body, or anything, not test. Test is not the updation, but anything if you update in your actions, make sure to update it so that it will reflect everywhere. Like latest version is used by your audience or users. Okay. So this is what custom connector is, and which we just created right now. And there are two actions. One is it gives you the image, the operation ID, and the other is it consumes the operation ID and give you back the image for that prompt. Because here you are not adding prompt, right? This action is not asking you, give me the prompt, what is the number of image you want and the size. That was already handled by the first action. Now let's just take a look at how we can use it. Now, this. Okay, I've created one application, Power Apps. God, I should have played it. This is the Power App where I'm consuming that custom connector. Let's get started. Okay, this is the image generation which we already saw, and this was the image which was generated for me when I created it for the first time. And I think it did the similar, almost similar job when I created it for the second time. But yeah, after a few attempts, we get the similar results. API details. So this is where I was talking about. There are two. This is two-step action. One is request. You have to make a request for a generated image, and then you get that generated image using that operation ID. So this is the API details example. Let's just go ahead and add. Um, let's see. Not sure whether it will give it or not, but let's test. Hmm. It did something, but very vague. Let's just search for Microsoft Redmond Office surrounded by all these. Okay. Then I'll go back to the code of how did I use it. This was pretty much clear. This gave a good response. Now what did I do is, let's just go to this. Also flows. So I've used this in two places. One is Power Apps and Flow. Okay, let's go. Yeah. So what did I do is, I've first thing first, if I want to use custom connector, so let's say I go back to my example page, and this is a screen which I created. On click of generate icon, it is generating an image for me. How it is doing that, right? So first thing, I want to integrate my app with the custom connector. How I can do that? I have to go back to the data. This is the data icon. What was the name of the connector? This is the name, right? Dall-E image Azure Open AI. You see, if I click on it, it will get added. So just a click. Custom connectors definitely are premium connectors, so it costs more than your normal connectors. Hence it is premium one. Now, as soon as I add this, I am open to use all the actions inside this. So as you see, there are two actions which was created, right? One is the ID which got generated and the image. I can use both of them because I've added that connector. Now, if you see in this, if I go to the on select, what am I doing is I am triggering a flow which is taking the values from here. Right now, I haven't directly used this in my Power App. I have used it with Flow, but you can directly use it as well. I can't directly use it because there are two-step actions which has to be taken. Definitely, we can do it in Power Apps as well, but I found Flow also a good example. So we pass these values to the Flow, and then we generate an image. So let's just go to the Flow, where I'm getting the response from the user prompt, image size, image number, initializing a variable of image URL so that I can get this back and show that image in Power Apps. This is the generator, Dall-E image generator, which is the first action after where I'm giving the prompt and it is giving me operation ID. So this is, I'm passing the JSON so that I can get the operation ID. I'm adding some delay because if I just add another action behind it, it will directly not generate an image for me. It takes few seconds to generate, hence I'm adding a delay and then using that ID in the other action after which I can get the image. Again, parsing the data, parsing the JSON response from the previous action so that I can get the URL, storing the URL in the variable, only the first value, so that I can just show it in the app, and then responding back to the Power Apps. So coming back to the Power Apps, if you see here, I am storing the image URL which I got from the Power Automate and passing these so that it can give me the URL. Now let's just go ahead and see the variable. Okay, let's test it before that. Again, community, anything. Okay, the flow is running in the backend. Let's see the flow run so you can understand. See, this is the input which I got from Power Apps, Microsoft Community, etc. This is the first where we get the ID. I just pass the input prompt, delay, parse JSON will give me all the properties of that JSON response. Next is image generation. It gives me the URL of the image, again parsing it, storing it in a variable, and responding in the Power Apps So Power Apps will only have one value, which is the image URL. And now if I just go back to the Power App and if we see the variable, it should have the variable. So this is the whole URL of the image. You can use this, you can store the image in storage account, blob storage, wherever you want. And if I just hit this again, it should give me the exact image which was responded. Okay. So this is how the custom connector was integrated in flows and also in the Power Apps. But definitely another thing is you can go and use directly in the Power App. So just to give that example, what we can do is, let me just, yeah, what I have to do is I just have to call the custom connector. And now I can see this in suggestions. So as you can see, this is the connector and these are the two actions. So first is Dall-E generate image. And then if I use this and pass the exact same thing, which was passed, and store it in a variable, that response. Mhm. And if I play this again, then we are directly consuming that custom connector in Power Apps, not through Flow. Let's just wait. And if I come back, then just look at the variable response. Why? Okay, maybe just a second. I just want to. Yeah. Yes. Let's see whether it stored the value or not. It does store the JSON object. It does work. I think I passed everything correct. Not sure still. There's some error. Value, selected value. This is the number of image. Maybe, but you can directly use this as well, directly without any concern. But the only thing is you have to convert the JSON, take that content ID, and then pass that content ID to the other action uh, from the same connector, and then show the image URL. So you can directly consume your custom connector in your Power Apps as well, instead of just creating a flow. But this custom connector was majorly for Dall-E. Similarly, it is not a restriction. You can just go ahead and perform the same thing with your chat and completions. All you have to do is create a custom connector and just take the view code, just sorry, store the JSON somewhere and just pass this JSON. So just to reiterate, Dall-E was an exceptional case where we had to take two-step process. But if you just want to create a bot where you want your users can ask questions and this chat will respond back, then you just have to use this endpoint directly without any issue. And as soon as let's just pass what is Microsoft Open AI, and it will respond back with the answer. You don't there is no two-step process here. You can directly use this same code, just create a custom connector and use that custom connector into your Power Apps or integrate with your flow so that your users can just pass in the prompt and you give back them the response. Similarly, for completions, you need to pass a prompt and you have to pass a prompt by just framing something. Maybe you want to generate some idea or write or tell AI to write a post for you, either for your Instagram or give me the ideas for captions, etc. You can do all that sort of thing with completions, but with chat, you can only have Q&A, okay, Q&A kind of thing. So just make sure that you can directly use this code and the endpoint is different for every different capabilities. So use that, create a custom connector, integrate with your Power Platform service, either in the form of Automate, Flow, or PowerShell agent, anything, and it will work wonders for you. And you can integrate directly. Yes, I think that is it. Any questions, anyone, before we wrap up?